2. You didn't see there though, Good morning, Magic players and card collectors of all kinds. Welcome back to the channel. First off, let me apologize for last week. We did not get an episode of our new Tuesday series of 1 to 100. Unfortunately, I wish I could put up like 100 fingers, but I can't. I need to come up with like a way to do that though, like as a GIF or something. Anyways, I did want to do a quick, brief apology at the start of this video, not just for missing out in terms of this series last week for you guys, but also in terms of I wanted to apologize for the Super Deck Sunday episode. Until I got home and started editing it, I had no idea that I'd completely forgotten to zoom out for you guys, and so you missed some of the cards, and then Kaiba was all wet and tired and a little bit cold, and just kind of, I should have just canceled the episode outright instead of trying to film it, but I thought, you know what, if I could heat Kaiba up, I could get this video in, and then we can get home and have a nice, hopefully, day together, because things really aren't going super well between me and my dad at home right now. He's just not in the best of moods with all his renovation stuff that he's trying to do, and no matter how hard I try not to be in his way, I seem to be in his way regardless. In particular, in terms of Saturday recently, he usually wants me to do my laundry in the afternoon, and so I was avoiding going downstairs to do the laundry, and then he ended up doing it nothing during the morning, but he was in the basement the whole time, so I thought he was doing stuff, and he got annoyed with me because I didn't get my laundry started right away. Anyways, the whole thing, long story short, basically he kept me up most of the afternoon yesterday until like way later than I wanted to be, so I'm pretty tired. So this video is going to also be kind of short, and then I'm going to get home, try and walk Kaiba super quick, and get to bed for an hour or two before I have to actually get up and make the lunch and do the regular stuff for the day. I'm filming this on Monday, but you guys are going to see this on Tuesday, so that's why that might not make sense to you guys, but basically today is my early day. Started at 2:30 and didn't get off until close to 6:30, so almost got a solid 4 hours in today, which was nice. But anywho, all that rambling aside, let's get into this deck, because I know that's what you guys are here for. Oh, one more thing before I open this box. In case you didn't see the Super Deck Sunday episode, because it was a Yu-Gi-Oh deck, and a lot of you guys watching this series are obviously Magic players, I did want to let you know that we are going to have something special at the end of the episode today, which I'm going to reveal when I open this box. But the reason we have this special thing to open is because a coworker of mine who I'm friendly with, but like I wouldn't call him like friends outside of work friends. Like we get along really well at work. Anyways, he was foolish enough to make a wager against me, and I don't bet on anything unless I actually know for sure I'm going to win the bet. Or at least in my mind, I believe for sure that I know that I'm going to win the bet. So like 9 out of 10 times, if I actually agree to somebody saying, hey, you want to make a bet on it? Chances are, if I agree, you've already lost. And in this case, we had bet donuts to cards instead of dollars to donuts. And so he had to get me a bundle pack from the Dollarama, which I opened on Sunday for Super Deck Sunday. And for you guys today, we have a pack of Ninja Turtles. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So we are going to open that at the end of this episode. As you can see, I have done a lot of card stuff with this deck since the last time we were in here. The last time that we looked at this, I only had the land section done, and we are going to have to revisit the land section as well. Briefly, before we get into the main stuff that we're going to cover today. However, I still did not get as far as I wanted to into everything. I have this beautiful box of blue, white, and multicolored instants that I still need to get through to finish off the last pile before we can start really diving into like the meat and potatoes of this deck. What I do want to go over though today is I'm going to go over the lands again because some of it has changed a little bit. And then I'm also going to go over all of the cards that actually have something to do with gates, since this is a gates deck. For a reminder to you guys, the 1 in 1 to 100 this time around was this interesting little alternate win con called Maze's End, where it is a land that taps for colorless, and if I pay 3 and tap it, I can return it to my hand, search my library for a gate, put it onto the battlefield, and shuffle. And then if I happen to have 10 or more gates with different names when I pull this off, I automatically win the game. So the goal of this deck is to get this pulled off and win the game using this method. With that said, since it is a gates-based deck, I have a lot of cards that have something to do with gates in this little pile here that we are going to go over. But I did decide that my commander, because we needed to have 10 gates and they need to be different names. And up until recently, I only owned 10 gates. Because of all those reasons, I decided that this was going to be our commander for the deck. And the sun is just starting to come over. So I'm going to put a pause here and I'm just going to advance. All right, there, much better. I had started in the shade, but the shade is starting to go away because the sun's coming out over top of the big beer store that I'm parked in front of. Not that I have any intentions of going in here. I just found that this was the shadiest spot along my route where I could park to do the video for you guys so it wouldn't be like crazy sun beating down on the cards. Anywho, our commander for this deck is Cody Vociferous Codex. And the reason I chose this card in particular is because I thought, first off, it gives me access to all the colors, which if I'm going to be playing with the decks, because of the way the commander rules work, I couldn't include, say, the Orzhov Guildgate if I wasn't going to play black. So, because that's how the rules work, I decided I needed to include a commander that would allow me to play Wooburg. And what I love about this commander is, first off, he's interesting because you can't cast any permanent spells once it's on board. So any of the permanents that I plan to play in this deck, I have to play before I put this out. Or basically I have to put this out, I have to kill this off before I can play other permanents, which is an interesting take on the deck. And reminds me that I need to actually go back and grab a couple extra black instants when I get home too for this deck, because I forgot I wanted to include like murder and a couple things just in case I want to get rid of my commander. What I also love about this card is its ability. Pay 4, tap, add Wooburg. So you pay any 4 of any colors and you're going to get 5 mana back for this, which is nice. And then you can cast your next spell. When you cast your next spell, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile an instant or a sorcery with lesser mana value. Until the end of your turn, you can cast that spell without paying its mana cost, and then put all the other cards exiled this way at the bottom of your library in a random order. So what this does really nicely is it lets me filter through and pull out a bunch of extra cards each turn. Once per turn, of course, but if I can pull off the ability, I can at least get 1 extra card out of my deck per turn. And the goal of this deck is very similar to my mono blue deck, which if you've seen the Super Deck on Sunday episode of that, basically my goal is like playing solitaire almost. I'm trying to just get through my deck as quickly as possible and play Laboratory Maniac or Thassa's Oracle to win that with that deck. With this deck, of course, my goal is to get to the 10 gates as fast as possible. So I need to filter through all the other cards and get there in order to get there. And so Cody is really good at helping me do that, in my opinion. Mainly because since this line here says I can't cast permanent spells, what I decided to do with this deck is I'm only going to include 25 permanents. So out of 100 cards, only 25 cards will be permanents other than lands. Sorry. There will be 40 lands in total. So there will be 65 permanents in total, but most of them will be lands. And so what my goal is with this deck is to have a ton of instants and sorceries, mainly focused around scrying, drawing, things like that, so that I can hopefully get those lands into my hand and then get them onto the battlefield quickly enough to win the game. I do not expect this to be like a bracket 4 tier deck or anything like that. I'm not including anything crazy in this deck other than maybe the other alternate win con card, which you'll see at the end of this video, before the pack opening. But yeah, the other thing I wanted to go over super quick about this deck is there is an extra land in here that was not in here before, and I'm going to reveal it now because I did not own this land before. I now am in possession of a copy of Baldur's Gate. So what happened is on Friday, a friend of mine who I used to play some cards with at the card shops before I stopped going to them, because of my depression mainly, and because I'm always worried about Kaiba, to be perfectly honest, as well. So I don't like leaving him at home by himself and him being super depressed either. Anywho, long story short, I had put out my videos about this deck, and I've been talking about this deck in like the Discord server that the card players all hang out in for the particular card shop that I am shouting out today, which is Dark Fox. I don't have a copy of their card on me, unfortunately, but I promised the player who traded me that I would not shout out their name or reveal anything about them, but I would shout out Dark Fox trading card games, because they are the main store that this person likes to play at. And so they asked me if I would hype them up instead. They gave me a really sweet trade. I ended up getting like 5 or 6 cards that all involve gates, and including this card. And I only had to trade like 2 or no, was it 3? It was 3. I traded 3 like low tier cards from the Dominaria pulls that I used to do way back last year from the bundles, when I pulled like all those insane like extra legendaries where I had like 4 or 5 copies of the same one. Basically, I gave like 2 or 3 copies of different things from those that I had like multiple copies of, so it didn't hurt my collection in any way, shape, or form. And this kind card player gave me this and a few other cards that I'm going to reveal as we go along. But this is the big card for sure in this deck. This one, and then there is one creature card that is like another huge hit for me that are totally going to change how well this deck is going to operate. Because I was saying in the Discord server that I just really wasn't expecting that I was going to do well with this deck. As I got into it, I realized that I just do not have enough gates, first off. I didn't realize that they made so many extra gates. I only thought they made the 10 guild gates, which we'll just look at the guild gates now as we go over this. But apparently they have many other gate cards as well, like lands that include the gate type. So I don't have any of them in my collection. And so, like I say, this kind person shouted out to me on the Discord server and said, hey, I have an extra copy of Baldur's Gate, and I have a few other cards. I'm not building a gates deck, so if you want these cards, you can have them. Which was really kind of them. So in return, I offered them a couple cards. And yeah. So anywho, what I love about Baldur's Gate is you can pay 2, tap it, add X mana of any one color, where X is the number of other gates you control, so it doesn't count itself. But if you have 2 or 3 gates out already when you put Baldur's Gate out, you're going to be able to trade up for mana every turn, which is nice. We have, of course, our islands. We have 4 of those. We discussed we were going to do 4 of each color 4 of these 2 colors we discussed last time, and we were going to do 3 of the others. I ended up actually cutting one of the swamps for the Baldur's Gate because I just do not have a lot of black in here. Most of the black cards that I will be running in this deck involve either bringing something back from the graveyard, or I am going to, like I say, include a couple copies of like Murder and other cards that do that same effect, just in case I want to either kill Cody or there's an issue on the board that I need to deal with. I love how cheap Cody is, so I can actually kill it myself a couple times if I really want to, and then I don't have that much extra cost for the commander tax. Plus, since it's colorless, I can pay whatever mana I want for this, which is nice. I did include an Evolving Wilds and a Terramorphic Expanse, and I'm still tempted to pull one of these back out and put in the extra swamp, but I think having 2 of these is better just in case I need to really filter for the colors. And then, of course, as we looked at last time, we do have the 10 temples to make up our final 10 lands for the 40. Again, we want to be doing a lot of scrying. We want to be moving stuff around, trying to get to the gates as quickly as possible. With that said, we do, and as I said before, we only want to have 25 permanents. So I do have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 permanents already picked out, plus the commander makes 17, which means I only have 8 permanents left to pick from, which is a lot of cutting I have to do from this pile. And from this tiny pile at the back here. Where did that tiny pile go? Oh, it's behind the cards. I'm just going to put that tiny pile actually with the creatures. I might as well. So this thick pile here, I can only pick 8 cards from, because unless I decide to cut a couple things, which I might. I might cut a couple of the cards that involve gates. I haven't decided for sure yet. First up, we have a couple of sorceries, though, that deal with gates. Open the Gates lets me search my library for a basic land or a gate card, reveal it, put it in my hand, and shuffle, which is nice. And Circuitous Route lets me do the same thing, except I get to grab 2 cards. So, the idea, of course, being to use both of these to get any of the gates that I'm missing to try and get to the total that I need faster. Definitely auto-includes for sure. Next up, we have District Guide, 2 and a green. When he enters the battlefield, you can search your library for a basic land card or a gate to reveal it, put it into your hand. So it basically works the same way as Open the Gates, except I'm also getting a 2/2 on the board. So that one is definitely staying in. Gate Colossus is another one that's definitely staying in. I really like this one. Costs 1 less to cast for each gate I control, so it could actually be free to put into play if I already have 8 gates on board. It can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less, and whenever a gate I control enters, I can put this card from my graveyard on top of my library, so I can keep getting it back if it gets killed. It's a powerful 8/8, so I mean, it's definitely a solid include. I also want to keep the Gatekeeper Gargoyle in here for sure, even though it's a little expensive at 6. I like that it's a flying 3/3, but comes into play with a +1/+1 counter for each gate I already control. So the later I get this into play, which at a cost of 6, it's probably getting in there fairly late. The better chances there are of me having at least 3 or 4 gates to make this into a flying 7/7 potentially, or 6/6 or 7/7, something like that. Smelt War Gatekeepers is a really interesting card. I like this one because it lets me do the thing that I enjoy doing in a couple of my other decks where I steal people's stuff. The thing that I'm not so sure about whether I'm going to actually end up keeping this in here or not is the cost. The 3 in the red is a little high. It is a 2/4, which is nice. And again, if I control 2 or more gates, I get to gain control of target opponent's creature until end of turn, untap it, and give it haste. So, I mean, I am going to at least get to swing at somebody with something, which is kind of cool. Gateway Sneak, another one that I'm like tempted to bench, but for now I'm definitely leaving in. 2 and a blue for a 1/3. Whenever a gate enters the battlefield, this is unblockable. And whenever this thing deals combat damage to a player, I get to draw a card. The main reason I want to keep it in here is the second ability, because it'll allow me to keep looking for those extra gates. But I don't know if I'm going to keep it in there or not. Those 2 are maybes. This is another one that I'm kind of tempted to cut. And again, like I say, when we get into the other permanents later, which we're not going to do today, but we're going to get into them the next episode, I'm going to be putting some of these into a maybe pile and some of them into a for sure pile. And the for sure pile will stay in. The maybe pile will have to compete against some of these in here, potentially, for their spots. Archway Angel, 5 and a white for a 3/4 with flying, so it's a decent body for sure. The reason why you want to keep it in here, of course, is you gain 2 life for each gate you control when this thing enters. So if you can get this thing to enter after you have 4 or 5 gates on board, you're getting, potentially 8 to 10 life. That's not bad for 5 and a white, but it's still a little high for my liking. It's definitely on the maybe list. I think these two are more potentially likely to go in compared to the Angel, to be perfectly honest. The Armory Guard is another one that I'm kind of like, It is a 2/5 with Vigilance as long as you have at least one gate. So, I mean, that is solid. 3 and a white is a little expensive again. I want to try and have less expensive stuff because the more expensive the card, the less likely it is I'm putting it into play before Cody. And then I have to try and get rid of Cody afterwards to get it onto board. So that is the main reason why I'm kind of iffy about all the higher cost stuff. But again, it is kind of what it is. I'm definitely more tempted to put that one in again over the Angel though. Gate Creeper Vine, sorry. 1 green for a 0/2. When this thing enters the battlefield, you can search your library for a basic land or a gate card. So it works the exact same as the District Guide, except it has Defender. So you can't attack with it. But I mean, it's another searchable one, so I like that one for sure. It's definitely staying in. Ceruli Gatekeepers, 3 and a green for a 2/4. When this thing enters the battlefield, if you control 2 or more gates, you gain 7 life. I'm more tempted to include that one over the Angel, to be perfectly honest, even though the Angel is going to give me more life, just because of how high the Angel's cost is. Greenside Watcher is one of the ones I got in a trade, which is really cool. It's a 2/1, which I always complain about the weaker butt, don't get me wrong. But I'm never going to probably swing with this one because I'm going to keep tapping it to untap gates. What I like about this is basically whenever I put a gate into play, I can then tap this guy to untap that gate because all the gates come into play tapped. So it's kind of nice that way. This is one of the ones I'm on the fence for too. I do like the idea that it has double strike as long as you control a gate, but it's only a 3/3 for 3 red and a white. So that's a very high cost. So it's definitely in the maybe pile. Glaive of the Guild Pact, I really like this card. Equipped creature gets +1/+0 for each gate you control and has Vigilance and Menace. That is definitely a solid include into this deck. Hold the Gates is a nice one, but I'm not sure if I'm going to include it. It is a little cheaper. Well, no, it's not actually. It costs 1 more. It's 2 and a white instead of just 2. Creatures you control get +0/+1 for each gate you control and have Vigilance. I misread that the first time I got handed this. Oh, that's why they traded me this. This was another one I got in a trade, and this one's insanely good. Okay, so if I have 4 gates, it's actually +0/+4. Okay. Yeah, never mind. I want that in there. Guild Summit is another one I got in the trade. Enters the battlefield, you may tap any number of untapped gates you control. Draw a card for each gate tapped this way, and whenever a gate enters the battlefield under your control, you get to draw a card. Very solid enchantment. And then this is the pièce de résistance. This is the one that we definitely wanted in the trade for sure. 9 Fingers Keen. I thought I had a copy of this, and I was really disappointed that I didn't. It was actually the reason I made the Discord post in the first place. I didn't even realize there were extra gates at the time when I originally made the Discord post. But this thing is insane. 1 black, green, and blue for a 4/4 with Menace. So it's already difficult to block. And then if you can find other ways to make it unblockable, that's even better. But it has Ward, pay 9 life, so it's really hard to target this thing once it gets on board as well. And then, if it deals combat damage to a player, look at the top 9 cards of your library. You can put a gate card from among them onto the battlefield. Then if you control 9 or more gates, put the rest into your hand. Otherwise, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So this is insanely good as an ability, and I would love to have made this as my commander, except, as I say, in commander, you have to be able to tap for all the colors, potentially, that you want to be able to use, and that means a bunch of my gates wouldn't be allowed to be included in this deck, because anything with red or white, I wouldn't be able to play. So, unfortunately, it has to go into the 99, but it is definitely the card that I'm trying to get to the fastest, other than the 10 gates themselves. And then the alternate win con that I'm going to include in this deck, for sure, is Helix Pinnacle. I think this is going to be an insanely good card to include in this deck. First off, it has Shroud. Second off, it's insanely cheap to put into play. So it only costs 1 to put into play. It can't be targeted by anybody once it's on board. Pay X, put X target, pay X, and put X tower counters on Helix Pinnacle. So if I pay 5, I put 5 counters on this thing. At the beginning of my upkeep, if there are 100 or more counters on this thing, I automatically win the game. What I love about this is I have a deck with 40 lands, and in addition to that, that new land that I just got, the Baldur's Gate, could potentially tap for up to 10 mana each turn. So if I pay 2 into this, I tap it for 10, let's say, then I end up adding 10 tokens to this. That means in 10 turns, I could potentially win the game on this, using just that land alone. Of course, I'm going to tap other stuff too, but I'm just saying, like, this is a really fun way to achieve my goal as well. So I'm going to say yes to the Gateway Sneak, and I'm going to say maybe to these Melt Ward Gatekeepers. So these 3 are going to go into a maybe pile and potentially not be included in the deck, depending on what other permanents I want to use. But as of right now, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Cody makes 14 permanents out of 25. So that would leave me with 11. That gives me 11 choices between the cards that I just put into the maybe pile and the stack that is sitting over here. Of which there are definitely some spicy things in here that I really want to include, because I have some alternate ideas of how to make this deck work more efficiently as well. But in the meantime, in between time, that's all I have for you for this episode of 1 to 100. So it is time to crack the pack and end the episode. And keep an eye out, because there will be a few future pack openings in the near future based on something that actually I also forgot to mention at the beginning of the episode. Shout out to Shomenuchi, which I forgot to include his channel link in my Super Deck Sundays, so I will definitely make sure I include it this time. But he just got to 200 subs, and he had this big contest for getting to 200 subs where he was going to give away a pack, 3 packs of cards and 3 singles to somebody in his Discord server who follows the channel, you know, and Kaiba and I won. So we are going to have a few extra packs and some cool singles to show you guys in the near future. But for now, let's get into this pack. We've got a Surveillance Cam. 1 blue, flash. When this artifact enters or leaves the battlefield, you may tap or untap target creature. Pay 3 and a blue, sacrifice this thing to draw 2 cards. No one in New York was going to notice 1 more cockroach. I do like the cockroach camera from the show. Ooh, we got a Frog Butler. 1 and a green for a 1/1 with Death Touch. Taps to add 1 mana of any color, and you can pay 2 to give this thing reach until end of turn. So this is basically Poison Dart Frog in reverse. Poison Dart Frog has reach to begin with, and you have to pay 2 to give it Death Touch. In this version, this one has Death Touch, you have to give it reach. I like this card, though. I'm very happy to have pulled that. 3 for 3. That is hilarious. In 3 consecutive packs of Ninja Turtles, we've pulled the Rock Soldiers. If I were playing Modern, I would definitely be seeing this as a sign, but I don't play 60 card format. Rock Soldiers is still pretty good, though. 4/3 for 3 in a red, and when it enters, you can destroy 1 target non-creature artifact. With faithful Alberto's assistance, this shall be a gathering of untold delight. Why would you ever wish to leave? Catching enemies between a rock and a hard place. Pain 101, 1 and a black. Until end of turn, target creature gains Death Touch, and when this creature dies, return to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. Nice. Your instructor is Casey Jones. Buzzbots, 1 and a blue for a 1/1 flying vigilance. When this thing dies, draw a card. Ooh, that's pretty good. That's very good. Omni Cheese Pizza. 2. When this thing enters, draw a card. Pay 1, tap, sacrifice this thing, add 1 mana of any color. Or pay 2, tap, sacrifice this thing, and gain 3 life, like a classic food. Pretty neat. Add just a sprig of parsley for color, says Michelangelo. I forgot to do the flavor text again. Designed for autonomous pollination, the Stocktronics Buzz Bots souped up power plant allows for months of independent service. The optional taser is for defensive purposes only, of course. Foot Elite, 2 and a white or black for a human ninja. Nice. I do want to build a ninjas deck eventually. I just don't have I don't have a ninja that would go blue, black, and white currently. If I pull one, that would be cool, but I don't currently have one. So my ninja's deck is probably going to be blue-black focused mostly. Anyways, whenever this creature attacks, another target creature you control gets +1/+0 and gains indestructible until end of turn. That's pretty good. And it's a 2/4? I like it a lot. Damn it. The Foot Elite are the personal students of the Shredder, a reserve guard without equal. Lord Drag, Insect Invader. 3 and a black for a 3/2 with flying. At the beginning of your end step, if a permanent left the battlefield during your control this turn, create a 1/1 black insect warrior creature token with flying. Ooh, nice. Pay 3 and a green, sacrifice a token to draw a card. Cool. I like that guy. That might go into my Descend deck. I think that might fit really well in my Descend deck, except for the fact that tokens don't technically descend, but... Spicy Oatmeal Pizza. 2 and a red for an artifact food. When this thing enters, it deals 4 damage to any target and 3 damage to you. Ooh. Pay 2, tap it, sacrifice it, gain 3 life. Yeah, I threw in some habaneros to cut the heat on this, says Raphael. We got lessons from life. Nice. Draw 3 cards. You can put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. That is awesome. I am building, as you guys know, a couple of different landfall decks. Although the green, black, blue one is going to have a change to it, which I want to talk about in the near future with you guys. But for now, that's where this one's probably going to end up. Everyone's got their own strengths. Lita, you never know what cards they might play. Instead, focus on what you know and never doubt your choices, says Michelangelo. Michelangelo, Mutant BFF. 2 and 2 green for a 4/4. Each creature you control with a counter on it can't be blocked by more than one creature. Ooh, nice. Whenever Michelangelo enters or attacks, you get to make a mutagen token as well. Cool. I think that might be the one that's in the commander deck. I can't remember for sure, but if not, that is definitely a good one. Big time hit. Keep the hits coming. Turtle power. 2 and a green. Flash. Turtles you control get +2/+2. Unnoticed by the crowd, the strange canister bounced several more times, striking and smashing a glass jar which held 4 small turtles. Turtle Lair. Taps for colorless. Taps to add 1 mana of any color, but you can only use it on a ninja or turtle spell. Pay 3, tap, and target ninja or turtle can't be blocked this turn. Ooh, cool. That'll be interesting for my ninjas deck. Illegitimate Business as well. We got 2 hollow lands in this. Nice. Gives me a life. Taps for black or green. The recipe isn't the only secret. Home is where your pizza delivers. And a token, if I remember correctly. Mutagen and mutant. Nice. That's really convenient. Your mutagen makes a mutant. All right. That is it for our episode of 100. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this episode, and I hope that you guys enjoyed that little extra bonus pack opening as much as I just did. And I hope that you guys will tune in for the next episode next week. From Kaiba at home and myself in the car, much love to you all. Thank you for watching, and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Love you all. Bye.